Only one river in England has ever had legally released beavers on it. The entire trial revolved around adhering to that boundary. But no one thought of one thing. Beavers don't read licenses. They had penetrated into rivers where no one had introduced them. And they had gone further than government estimates predicted before anyone conducted a proper check. Natural England estimated there were around 400 wild beavers in England in 2021. 3 years later, surveys confirmed at least 400 to 600, and that number is very likely still short of the real total today. One of the most tightly controlled wildlife trials in English history took place in March 2015, when 5 beavers were released into the River Otter in Devon. The Natural England license came with tight conditions, annual reporting, ongoing monitoring, and an explicit rule that any beaver found outside the designated catchment had to be trapped and returned, and a motive subject, and said that any future decisions about wild beaver releases in England would be taken solely on the basis of scientific and social evidence. He warned, however, that unauthorized releases remained firmly illegal. The boundary held for 5 years. By 2020, the population had grown to about 15 family groups, all within the River Otter system, exactly where the trial expected them. The results were good enough to take the risk. The final report recorded 28 dams and a 37% increase in fish numbers. The population became permanent in August 2020. It was the first legal reintroduction of an extinct native mammal in English history. But even before the announcement, someone had already quietly crossed the boundary. The expansion had begun. Geographically, the crossing was not spectacular. The headwaters of the Otter and the Colne are only a few hundred yards apart across flat, easily crossed land. It follows a well-understood pattern. Young beavers disperse from their natal territory as subadults to seek unoccupied ground and establish their own family groups. Telemetry studies have shown that beavers average about 11 river kilometers before settling, with a range of up to 20 kilometers. One can easily imagine a single individual, acting alone, well capable of a short walk over land and then a clear swim from the Colne into the River Exe. The original license should have trapped this animal, but instead, it was allowed to continue as policies were adjusted to meet the new reality. By March 2021, after 400 years' absence, beavers were actively trying to recolonize the River Colne without any human help. Devon Wildlife Trust Field Officer Jake Chant gave an early warning. If suitable sites for relocation ever ran out, population control, including culling, might eventually be essential. At this time, the situation still seemed reasonably contained. One river had split into 2. Only one field officer had put a flag up. Exactly how much further the river had already gone, nobody knew yet. The River Exe told a similar story, with reports of gnawed wood quietly stacking up for years. A dedicated 260-kilometer survey was conducted by canoe and on foot in 2023 by Natural England and its partners. The survey officially confirmed 6 active beaver territories along the River Exe. The spread was much larger than anyone had realized. The Exe was not the only river affected. Similar surveys were quietly confirming wild populations in systems never included in any official plan. There was a wild population confirmed on the Devon-Cornwall border in the River Tamar before 2021. Further north, on the River Tawe, researchers discovered that the actual population significantly exceeded previous estimates. By March 2023, researchers had mapped 13 separate territories in the Bristol Avon and Somerset Frome River systems near Bath. That's close to 50 individual beavers living in a stretch of England nobody had planned to reintroduce them to at all. By far the most striking case was the River Stour in East Kent. When Natural England commissioned a baseline survey in early 2023, the presence of beavers was not just recent. The population had been around for over a decade, at least since 2012, and was entirely unnoticed by any formal monitoring program. The Stour alone, properly surveyed, was found to support 51 active beaver territories, living and breeding for a decade in total official silence. The real surprise of this story lies here. It's not about mystery at all. It's about how awful the numbers were underestimated. The Mammal Society suggested the total might be less than 100. But surveys revealed a significantly higher actual population. With 94 active territories and at least 600 beavers confirmed, the paperwork was finally playing catch-up. Naturally, a population far larger than anticipated, spread over rivers that no one had anticipated, caused real friction. Mark Elliott of the Devon Wildlife Trust warned of this. Without proactive management and dedicated support for the affected landowners, conflict with existing land use is simply inevitable in a landscape as heavily modified as England's. The National Farmers Union took a tougher stance. They formally objected to beavers being given protected status without a strong management framework already in place. They showed actual, documented damage, including crops that had been cut down, riverbanks that had been undermined by burrowing, and agricultural land that had been flooded. Their argument was that using evidence from one managed river trial was too weak a basis to build national policy for populations already living uninvited in dozens of waterways. The law was enacted despite the dissenting opinions. The Eurasian beaver was officially added to the list of protected species in England on October 1, 2022. From then on, it became a criminal offense to trap, injure, or kill a beaver or damage its dam, regardless of whether it had been officially released there. By February 2025, the government could no longer deal with the situation as a simple containment problem. Natural England and DEFRA announced a total policy turnaround. They abandoned the older fenced enclosure model and adopted wild release as the new national norm, allowing all existing populations to remain and grow naturally. The first fully open, unenclosed wild release under the new regime was carried out by the National Trust in March 2025 at Purbeck Heaths in Dorset. Unlike the river otter trial a decade earlier, these new releases were not experimental attempts to determine if beavers could be contained within a boundary. They were based on the assumption that full containment was never realistic in the long term, and the system had to confront that reality directly. When that management system finally came, it was detailed and carefully layered. If a landowner finds beavers, there is now a defined 5-step process to follow. It starts with free advice, then simple steps like creating buffer zones or protecting vulnerable trees with wire guards, steps that don't require a license. If problems continue, landowners can apply for a license to make changes. Lethal control can only be used as a genuine last resort for serious and proven damage. Even with a formal system in place, beavers keep getting into situations that no one planned for. In early 2025, a female beaver swam straight into the town of Swanage and began trying to build a lodge next to the public toilets at the beach car park. It is a tiny, almost comic detail, but it sums up the story. Despite all the permits and surveys, a beaver still found itself where no rules had been written. What started as 5 beavers in one river in 2015 had, within a decade, turned into a population in more than a dozen English catchments. The animals were just doing what beavers always did. It was the paperwork that was playing catch-up for the better part of a decade, not the beavers.